Hey everybody! After a prolonged absence, I'm back with another gameplay video. As you saw by that previous screen, this is a hack of Mortal Kombat for the Sega Genesis called Mortal Kombat Arcade Edition. What's so special about this is five people got together to basically take the original Sega Genesis Mortal Kombat and make it as close to the arcade game as they could. And I think they did a spectacular job. They added in most of the arcade bios, they redid most of the graphics, and they fixed a lot of the graphics and sound issues that were present in the original game. So let's get to playing and we'll kind of talk about it as we go. Right off the bat, they've redrawn the character select screen. The character portraits are more stylized after the arcade counterparts. I'll pick Raiden here. Let's go ahead and hit the button there. So if you're familiar with the Sega Genesis version, right off the bat, you can tell there are some differences. There's more sound effects. The sound effects are clearer. In the background, the guys are actually, the Shaolin monks are actually moving. There are a couple guards in the background that weren't in the original background. In the original Sega Genesis game, Raiden hardly says anything when he does his torpedo, gets hit, anything. They did a pretty masterful job with this. They've also added back in Reptile, Noob, and Ermac. And Ermac is a fun surprise at the end of the game. So I just electrocuted off Johnny Cage's head there, and in the original Genesis version, Raiden doesn't say anything. He does his fatality pretty much quiet. And then there's a blood spatter, and then it's over. I will be inserting footage of the original Genesis version probably in the middle of this next stage, just because I think this next stage really illustrates all of the differences between the original game and this new version. I always loved this temple stage, and the way they've redone it, it looks so much closer to the arcade. It looks a lot like the Super Nintendo version, actually.
Raiden wins.
So I think right here is where I will insert the footage of the Genesis game. Alright, now we're playing the original Sega Genesis version of the game. The one that was released back in the day in 1993. As you can see right off, there are no clouds in the background, and the bluish sky, I guess for lack of a better term, is just such a painful looking blue. The color choices for the temple aren't great, although the statues look okay. And there's no flames on the pillars back there. The other thing to keep a listen for is the audio here is a lot more subdued. The sound effects aren't as crisp, and there are just fewer of them. Like Raiden doesn't scream when he does his torpedo, for example.
Finish him.
And his fatality is pretty darn quiet in the original version of the game. So, now that we looked at the original, let's go back to Arcade Edition. So as you could see there, the original Genesis version of the game looks a lot more watered down than this version. And I guess I misspoke a little bit there previously. When I said I was inserting footage of the Sega Genesis game, technically these are both the Sega Genesis version. This one's just the hacked version. I imagine y'all figured that out by now. And if you're curious how I'm playing this game, first off, there's a patch at romhacking.net. If you look around on YouTube, you can actually find a pre-patched version of the game if you want to go that route. I have a Mega EverDrive Pro that I'm playing it on. And, yep, I'm playing it on an original Sega Genesis Model 2. That's been updated to component output. And then that's piped through a RetroTink 5X. And I'm using the FV310 filter at 1200 lines of resolution, I believe. But of course, I'm recording this in 1080p, so not everything comes through the same. Oh, that was... Kind of surprised I haven't done a Mortal Kombat video up to now. I think a lot of that is just because it was such a groundbreaking series, and I was never like a huge proponent of it. I'll go ahead and continue here. I was never such a huge proponent of it. I played it in the arcade for sure, but I was more of a Street Fighter guy, so I kind of wanted to have a good reason to get around to playing the series. And I think the various hacks of Mortal Kombat games that they've come out with in recent years by a lot of devoted people from around the world have kind of given me the reason to really revisit this series. We've got Mortal Kombat Arcade Edition here recently for the Sega Genesis. There's Mortal Kombat 2 Unlimited, also for the Sega Genesis, which makes the best version of Mortal Kombat 2 there is. And they've also made Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 Trilogy. Basically, they took the Genesis Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 and put back in all the stuff that was cut out of the original release. So yeah, if you're a Mortal Kombat fan with a Sega Genesis, you can play 3 really, really close versions of the game. I mean, in a practical sense, I'm not sure how much people, how much importance people put in that. As you can see, the pit stage here, they put back most of the blood and gore. That's nice. Oh, that's right. My buttons on this controller are not the best. Yeah, I've got a glitch going on here where sometimes the A button on this controller doesn't work the best. I really should grab the other. Keeping it too old school. I like how Shang Tsung's head actually tracks the action on this version. It didn't in the original Sega Genesis version. I would lambaste the original programmers of this game for being lazy. In some aspects, I think they were lazy. Like with the audio, there's a lot of audio missing, and I get that. But the original audio wasn't very clear either. And there have been a lot of fan efforts in recent years to make clearer audio drivers for the Sega Genesis, Sega Mega Drive. And I think companies back in the day could have
Sub-Zero.
striven better for
Flawless victory.
clear audio. Plus graphics as well, color choices, things like that. Better choices could have been made originally. I mean, the original Genesis Mortal Kombat was okay, but it certainly could have turned out much better. If the Super Nintendo one was more playable, it would have been the best version of the game. It looked pretty, but it played like garbage. But to be fair, this hack replaces so much and puts back so much that it's twice the size of the original game. Like the original game was 16 megabits, and this is 32 megabits. And I just don't see Acclaim back in the day shelling out the cash to make a 32 megabit cartridge. Maybe 24 though.
Sub-Zero wins.
So I am curious, as if we went back in time and the original developers of the game Probe had the know-how that the gentleman did these days, if they could produce a much better version of the game. Oh, his spine came out. That's too bad. So sad.
Sub-Zero wins. Flawless victory. Fatality.
I'm probably not going to play through the whole game. In fact, the next time I lose 2 rounds, I'm going to call it good. I was never the most skilled at this iteration of Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat 2 was the one I put my most time into, so I'm definitely better at that. I didn't actually play a lot of Mortal Kombat 3 or Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. By the time those games came out, I had started college and I was just way too busy. Plus, there were so many other games just calling for my time. The Sega Saturn had come out. I was playing a lot of excellent Capcom fighting games at the time. That was a great time.
Sub-Zero wins.
But I mean, to harken back to that time in the world, when Mortal Kombat came out, it hit arcades originally in 1992, I believe. 92, 93. I know it came out on the Genesis in September of 93. Well, the Genesis and the Super Nintendo. They released all versions of the game on the same day, Mortal Monday. And there's no discounting how much of a frenzy there was to get Mortal Kombat on a home console. Electronics Boutique and GameStop were all about pre-order this or you won't get a copy. And that was back when pre-orders weren't as commonplace as they are now. There were TV commercials, billboards, magazine ads. It was insane. There were advertisements in the movie theaters for this game coming out. And then when it did come out, man, we had a choice. The Genesis version retained most of the gameplay and a lot of the blood and guts, but it definitely was not a pretty sight, and most of the sound effects were gone, and the music had been changed, which some people have, grown to love the Genesis music. I think it's okay. It's not bad. It was just different. And then compare that to the Super Nintendo version of the game, which had very similar graphics and music and sound effects to the arcade, but was so choppy and just sluggish to respond Also, it was censored like nobody's business. The blood was turned white. Uh, most of the fatalities were edited. And then there were just some crazy gameplay glitches, like Goro could grab you from halfway across the screen like nothing. I remember when I got a copy of the game, I really pissed off the people at Electronics Boutique because I got the Super Nintendo version of the game, but then it was just so sluggish I couldn't stand it. So then I returned it for the Sega Genesis version of the game, and I hated the graphics so much I returned it again for the Super Nintendo version of the game, and they basically called no trade backs after that. So I was stuck with the Super Nintendo version of the game. And I will say, I did my best to play that one, but I spent more time at my friend Don's house playing the Genesis version. But I was never fully happy with the home port, so yeah, I basically stuck to Street Fighter. Alright, I think I've played enough Mortal Kombat Arcade Edition. It's a great hack. The original version of the game ain't bad, but this hack is definitely right up there with some of the best hacks. So if you can find it and have a way to play it, I definitely recommend it. So until my next video, hey, I hope everybody stays well, and I'll see you next time.